Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Freedom of speech. What does Prabhupada has to say about this? Is it a responsibility or over recklessness? Let us discuss about what Prabhupada has emphasized upon the true freedom of speech. It's not about liberties to speak whimsically, but the duty to speak in according to Bhagavad Gita, Dharma, spiritual principles. While modern society, which we see around, promotes unrestricted expression, he warned that speech without proper guidance leads to chaos, degradation, suffering. Instead, he thought that speech should be used responsibly to glorify Krishna and preach others and enlighten others. First point, freedom of speech jo hai, must align with truth, that is dharma, tattva. Devotees uses his speech, words to spread Krishna consciousness, not for personal aggrandizement or speculation. Prabhupada demonstrated this principle throughout his life. Example, Prabhupada's bold preaching in the United States. While Prabhupada often traveled in America, he encountered people questioning him, why should we accept Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead? In his lecture in New York, if I remember properly, someone challenged him saying like that. So we have the freedom to believe in any God. Why only Krishna? So Prabhupada firmly replied, you have the freedom to speak, but your speech is based on truth. He questioned. I am presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is. Can you show a scripture where your God says, Sarana unto me, Sarva Dharman Paritajya? Krishna says so. This incident shows that real freedom of speech is not about speaking whimsically, but about speaking truthfully based on Shastras, Sadhu and Guru. Second important point which I want to draw your attention is materialistic freedom leads to chaos. When speech is not curtailed, regulated by dharma, it leads to confusion and moral declinity, which you are seeing today, from Ranveers to Rayana. So modern society promotes such an unrestricted expression. But Prabhupada often warned that such freedom, when misused like this, results in atheism, materialism, and a social disorder and a perverse society. Understood what I mean? Example, in debate with professor in Melbourne in 1973, if I remember, during a discussion in Australia, a professor argued people should have the freedom to express any ideas, even if it is atheistic one. Prabhupada immediately countered with an analogy. It's a very interesting analogy. He says, if a madman says, I am the king of the whole world, should you allow him to rule? The professor admitted that allowing such an insane pagal man to rule would be, dangerous. Similarly, when people promote atheism and unrestricted sense gratification in the name of free speech, they're actually like a, with all due respect, madman causing chaos. Real knowledge must come from authority, from the supreme authority, Shri Krishna, and not by speculation or mental concoction. This illustrates that unregulated speech leads to disorder rather than enlightenment or happiness. Forget about enlightenment, even happiness is far from them. Third point would be, real freedom is surrender to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada often repeatedly taught that true freedom, whether in speech or action, comes through complete surrender to Krishna. The so-called independence in speech is an illusion. It pulls you away from the absolute truth. Example, Prabhupada cites from Srimad Bhagavatam about a parrot and the hunter. Prahlad Maharaj told a story about a parrot that is trapped in the cage. The owner would open the door and say, now you are free, speak whatever you like. But the parrot would only repeat whatever the owner had already taught, conditioned. It doesn't speak anything other than it is not known to it or practiced by it. So Prabhupada went on to explain Now, see, modern society gives the illusion of freedom, but people are actually trapped in material conditioning. The real freedom of speech is when one speaks about Krishna. Otherwise, people simply repeat the words of materialist like a caged parrot, which are they are getting brainwashed through media, etc., etc., etc. This example of parrot demonstrates that real freedom is found in Krishna consciousness, not in unrestricted materialistic speech. Hmm? For example, uh, the fourth point would be the misuse of speech brings a negative reactions. Those people who are going through the courts, they understand this because words have consequences. When speech is misused for blasphemy, criticism, falsehood, it results in a karmic reactions. Bhagavatam gives a classical example in regard to Lord Shiva's blasphemy by Daksha in the fourth canto. In the assembly, the king Daksha insulted Lord Shiva, calling him unworthy, irresponsible. Uh, it was very, his speech created enmity and disharmony among sages also, among demigods also. There was a commotion. As a result, Daksha had to suffer terribly. His head was severed and he had to be reborn with, with the goat head. So Prabhupada cited this example to warn against misuse of speech. You can draw the parallels now. Speech should be used only and only to glorify the Lord. Otherwise, it will lead to destruction, just as Daksha's words led to his downfall. This shows that speech must be carefully and used, as irresponsible words can bring serious consequences. As a Vaishnavas, as devotees, our duty is to speak Yare Deko Tare Kaho, Krishna Upadesh. A devotee should not speak whimsically, but he simply repeats the words of Krishna and the Acharyas. Prabhupada lived by this example personally. Every word he spoke was meant to uplift others, to enlighten others, to make them happy in real sense, because it was from the scriptures. In one of the interview in, in London in 73, a journalist asked Prabhupada, do you believe in free speech? Same exact question was put across to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, yes, but only if it is about Sri Krishna. The journalist laughed like this and said, that is not free speech, that is controlled speech. Prabhupada smiled back and he responded, saying that just as a doctor controls his prescriptions to cure the patient, a wise person controls the speech to benefit others. Freedom does not mean nonsense. It means responsibility. This highlights that a devotee speaks only for the highest purpose. For what? For spreading Krishna consciousness. Anything else for him is simply wasting of words, like the toads in the well, simply croaking to invite the snake to come and kill. In conclusion, real freedom is speaking for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's teaching and example from these literatures clearly shows that freedom of speech is not an excuse for uncontrolled expression, but a responsibility to speak in line with Dharma. He warned that unregulated speech leads to chaos, karma, and suffering, whereas controlled, regulated, Krishna-centered speech will liberate both the speaker and the listener. Thus, the true freedom of speech is not saying whatever one likes, but speaking what is actually beneficial for the spiritual upliftment, glorifying Krishna, preaching to others towards the truth, and avoiding prajalpa. In other words, useless talk. Based on the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, austerities of the speech are described in the Bhagavad Gita 17th chapter 15th verse, where Prabhupada elaborates on the teachings of how it is important to regulate our speech. It is from the 17th chapter 15th verse, austerities of the speech. Lord Shri Krishna tells Anudvega Karam Vakyam Satyam Priyam Hitam Chayat Swadhyayabhyasanam Chaiva Vanmayam Taba Uchyate. What is the translation of it? Austerity of the speech consists of in speaking words that are one, truthful, second, pleasing, beneficial, not agitating for others, and involves regularly reciting the Vedic scriptures. From this verse, 5 key aspects of speech austerity emerge. I'll try to discuss each one of it. Anudvegna karam, not agitating others. Speech should not cause unnecessary disturbance or violence. Hate speech is on top these days. Second, satyam, truthfulness. One must speak the truth, but not in a harsh and hurtful manner. Satyam, priyam, priyam, bruhyam. Truth should be spoken in such a pleasant way. It should be understood and appreciated. It should not agitate a person. And third point is it should be priya. Priya means it's a pleasing speech. What should be spoken with kindness and gentleness. And fourth is it should be beneficial speech. It should benefit others. That is hitam. Hitam means speech should be used for the upliftment and the welfare of others. Swadhyaya, fifth one. Abhyasanam. Swadhyaya means reading scriptures. Speech is purified by studying and repeating the Vedic knowledge. That's why Swami Srila Prabhupada has translated all his wonderful books in English or in multiple languages. We should regularly to study of these things, and that will help us to purify our speech. When we read these literatures, we think, feel, and talk in those terminologies. If you allow me to expand the explanation based on these teachings one by one, austerity of the speech. The first one which I said, it should not be agitating others. Anudvega karam. Unnecessary arguments, blasphemy of others, criticizing everyone should be avoided. Even when you're speaking the truth, one should do so in a way that does not unnecessarily hurt others. Swami Prabhupada advised devotees to preach boldly, but with compassion. He often cited and said, the truth must be spoken, no compromise on the truth, but not in a way that agitates unnecessarily. Example, during public debates and all, Prabhupada would be talking about atheist, impersonalist, and he firmly, without compromise, presented Krishna's teachings, but never attacked anyone by name personally. Of course, in his personal interaction with devotees, for educating devotees, he would do so, but not in public. Second point is speech must be truthful, satyam. Falsehood for personal gain is always condemned. However, truth must be spoken wisely and appropriately. Prabhupada would often point out that Krishna himself sometimes speaks diplomatically. For example, in Mahabharata, of course, for a higher cause, for a higher purpose. Example of Yudhishthira Maharaj, the half-truth, when Krishna advised Yudhishthira to say Ashwatthama Kunjara Hataha. Ashwatthama is dead, that Kunjara was muted by Krishna blowing of the conch shell. So it was technically truth, but spoken in a strategic way. And the third point, it should be priya. It should be very pleasing. Even truth, if spoken harshly, even if it is truth, but if you speak it harshly, it loses its effectiveness. This word should be encouraging, inspiring, and it should not rather be demeaning. Swami Prabhupada was embodiment of such traits. He would correct devotees with that firmness, but with loving speech. Another example would be Rupa Goswami's humility in speech. That is nectar of instruction. Rupa Goswami instructed that devotee should always speak in a way that it wins the heart of others and not make them go away, would never come back. We should not fry people in that sense, in our terminologies. And the fourth point, according to this, is speech should be hitam. Hitam means beneficial. A word should be always used to elevate others spiritually, not to pull them down. Generally, we get entangled with gossip, idle talk, speech that does not benefit others about IPL, about politics, about movies, about Bollywood, about scams and scandals and affairs. The whole social media platforms are full of such things. But on the contrary, Srila Prabhupada letters to his devotees, say for example, his letters were always meant to encourage devotees in their service and never to discourage them. And each and every devotee would read those letters again and again and again just to get motivated. Because those days books were not available in the way and quantity it is available today. So that letter they would be waiting to read, and that would give them a shot in the arm that they would continue with the service like full throttle. And the fifth point would be it's a speech should be based on shastras, swadhyaya abhyasanam. Regular reading of Srila Prabhupada books, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and other books given by Srila Prabhupada purifies our speech. And the classical example of an exalted devotee is none other than Haridas Thakur. He's a best example who always used his tongue in glorifying Krishna and chanting Hare Krishna. Nothing else. We also can have prasadam using our tongue so that the speech becomes sweeter and sweeter. Apart from this, the point which I remember about is from Nectar of Instruction. Rupa Goswami says this, Vacho Vekam. It is said that Vacho Vekam, Mudaropasta Vekam, Jiva Vekam, Krodha Vekam, a lot of Vegas and Arjas in our system. Rupa Goswami's first instruction is, a sober person, whoever it is, if he can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, urges of the anger, actions of the anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. If somebody can tolerate this, Rupa Goswami goes on to say, he is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So, key lessons from Nectar of Instruction is avoid idle talk. Unnecessary talk leads to material entanglement, and Krishna conscious talk leads to spiritual and enlightenment and going back to God. And always try to speak about Krishna intelligently, smartly, and because the speaking about Krishna, talking about Krishna, not only purifies the whole atmosphere, but the speaker and the hearer, both of them get benefited. And always make sure that Vaishnava Aparad, avoid criticism. Even if not for Vaishnavas, even for others also, materialists also, don't unnecessarily decry them and criticize them. Of course, for a philosophical thing, for a presentation, we can always do so, but very intelligently, and so that they also come into mainstream Krishna consciousness. This is what I would like to convey. Otherwise, unnecessarily simply talking ill about others, blabbering about others, is not going to benefit anyone. So that the austerity is we need to regulate our speech. To regulate our speech, you have to regulate our tongue. To regulate our tongue, we need to do two activities: chanting Hare Krishna and having prasadam. And if you can read and hear Bhagavad Gita and lectures given by Srila Prabhupada, automatically our system gets trained, and whatever we speak will be beneficial, truthful, and it will always uplift others. This is what Prabhupada has personally done, and he has exemplified this in every interaction. He made sure that all his words brought people closer to Krishna rather than pushing them away from Krishna. So with this, I stop here. Thank you so much for patiently hearing me. If you have any questions or comments based on what I spoke, I would be happy to hear from you. Any questions? I would wait for a few seconds and then I'll conclude. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.